Is there any truth to the rumors that you were approached to beat the streak?
Yeah, but you know, everybody's making a big deal out of it. It was an idea from Undertaker. He came to me. He said, "Listen, I've never had a WrestleMania type of match where I had like a 5-star match at WrestleMania. I know I could have that with you, but I know that WWE doesn't want me to have the title, and you are the world champion. So if we did wrestle, I'd have to lose, but I don't mind doing that." He went to Vince McMahon, and Vince said no, and it was an idea. It was nothing else but that. I think a lot of people made it such a big deal, but it really wasn't a big deal. I agree with Vince McMahon. I don't think Undertaker should have been beaten at all. I don't even think that Brock Lesnar should have beat him. But if you're going to beat Undertaker, there's nobody more legit than Brock Lesnar. So was it a bad move? No. It was just it was a move to show Brock is the guy now and that he would hold the title. And I think they drew a lot of money with Brock Lesnar as the champion. So it wasn't a bad move, but I really believe deep down that Undertaker should never have been beat. He should go. He should have went the rest of his life as the only man to be undefeated at WrestleMania.
You were named in 2006 as the greatest shoot wrestler on the planet. Like in your career, like how much is kind of the shoot style come to the surface? Like, have you had a lot of matches which are kind of almost shoots, or do you just prefer to just keep them quite closely worked?
Only with Brock Lesnar and Chris Benoit. If you go back and watch my matches with Chris, you'll see that there are a lot of takedown wrestling at the beginning of the match, a lot of suplexes, a lot of real amateur style wrestling. And I really give a lot of credit to Chris Benoit because he was never an amateur wrestler. But he adapted to my style, and he was very easy to work with. We had great chemistry. But Brock Lesnar, gosh, we were both amateur wrestlers. You know, I was an Olympic gold medalist. He was an NCAA champion, so it was relatively easy with Brock. But those are the only two that I could really go full blow and just go out there and do my thing as an amateur wrestler. And they always were able to counter and react to it. It was very easy. But other than that, I don't think anybody else had been able to go in there and just let it flow and see what happens. Those two were just brilliant.
Well, the Iron Man match on Smackdown with Brock, probably the greatest Smackdown match of all time.
It was good. It's a shame that it's been relatively forgotten. But it was a Smackdown match, unfortunately. But, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact there wasn't a pay-per-view. So, I think that a lot of true grit wrestling fans do remember that match, and it is definitely underrated, but it was one of my favorites.
Of course, you're an Olympic gold medal winner. You won the Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. Did you ever want to go back to the Olympics, like at some stage, like thinking maybe if I leave pro wrestling, I can still give it one last shot?
I tried in 2012, and it was a very humbling experience. My wrestling was good. It's just that I couldn't keep up with the training. Not at 41. My body was, my wife will tell you, it was breaking down. I injured my shoulder one week. The next week it was my knee. Then the next week it was my Achilles tendon. It just it was ongoing to the point where I just couldn't stay healthy. So I had to stop, or I wouldn't be able to continue to pro wrestle. And it wasn't a smart move by me, but I figured I'd give it a shot and see what happened, and it just didn't work out. Yeah.
Obviously, you campaigned very strongly to have amateur wrestling put back into the Olympics in 2020. Thankfully, it is. Why do you think it was removed to begin with?
Well, it has a lot to do with politics. It had a lot to do with amateur wrestling kind of marching to the beat of their own drum, not wanting to take orders from the IOC, doing their own thing. We're not going to listen to you. The only other sport that did that was track and field. But you have to remember that wrestling isn't as much of a revenue sport as track and field is. So I think that it was more of a scare tactic by the IOC to say, listen, if you don't shape up, we will drop you. And it's like, how can you drop the oldest sport in the world? You know, the Olympics started with wrestling. And thank God when they did the voting, it was voted #1 to be brought back. So it was more of a learning experience, and it had to do with how can we get more people to watch amateur wrestling? What do we have to do? Well, one, we added women's divisions. Two, we made it more simpler to understand. We were changing roles every 4 years. It was getting confusing. Now they're trying to stick with the same roles every 4 years. So those two things have really helped it dramatically, and especially having women's wrestling, and they're good. The women are really good. It's fun to watch them. So it's good to see it's back, and I think it's back for good. But they're now going to listen to the IOC and the rules they have. And, you know, they've always tried to be the rebels, because we always thought there's no way they're going to drop us. We're the oldest sport in the world. And we're one of the most competitive worldwide. I mean, when you look at Asia and Europe and the United States, you know, it's not like it's a dying sport. You know, like there was this, I think they were looking at badminton. And the pentathlon, there's only 16 countries that compete. 16 out of like 300, and they dropped wrestling over to pentathlon. Like, it didn't make sense.
Not to kind of touch on too kind of personal a story, and we don't have to talk about this if you don't want, but have you had a chance to see the film Foxcatcher?
Yes. I
was just wondering what you thought. Was that because I know that there was some negative responses from Mark Schultz.
Rightfully so. Basically, listen, everything that you saw in that movie was true, except for the idea that John and Mark could have been gay. That's not true. And I know they didn't say that, but they kind of portrayed it a little bit. And I understand why Mark was upset, but the whole fact is the movie was dead on. The actors were great. The storyline was great. You know, there were a couple of things that weren't true, like John DuPont's mother already died. Mark and Dave were never there at the same time. As a matter of fact, Mark was there for about a year, and then he left, and Dave and I came in together.
Oh, wow.
And Dave and I were there for 8 years before that Dave got murdered. So you kind of missed that whole 8-year block.
Yeah. What would you say is your last greatest achievement from your career?
You know, I think it's the fact that I've been able to stay in it for 15 years, considering the health issues I've had in the past. You know, having, you know, broken my neck, I think 4 different times in pro wrestling, besides the fact that I broke it the year I won the Olympics. It's the fact that I've been able to stay in there and go more of a full-time basis this last 15 years. A lot of people counted me out when I left WWE in 2006. They said, you're not going to last long. Well, 9 years later, I'm still here. So that just shows my desire to want to be the best in professional wrestling. And it shows that my body's a lot more durable than people thought it was.
Brilliant. Oh, well, I've just been speaking to one of the best in professional wrestling, Kurt Angle. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com. I'll see you soon.